The promise of perpetuity is what we offer the community. Well, are you rolling? I might as well be. Oh my gosh, what inspires me the most about the Mariano Rancho property? It's right here in our backyard.
I got into conservation because I arrived in Ventura and saw all these beautiful hillsides that I wanted to explore, and I pretty quickly learned that they were all privately owned and you couldn't legally access them. And I learned about Ventura Land Trust and the work they were doing to provide public access in the hillsides, and I was immediately on board. I thought that that was a way I could make a difference for the community, and that really motivated me. I haven't looked back since. When I came around Ventura Land Trust as a volunteer in mid-20-teens, I knew about the Mariano Rancho acquisition. I had heard about it. I knew where the property was. Derek Poltney was the executive director and was driving this acquisition. He saw Mariano Rancho as a key property to both protect the hillsides of Ventura, but to provide recreational opportunities to the community. Mariano Rancho is a huge property. It's 1,645 acres. And if we think about it in really simple terms, picture a yard. On the left-hand side of the yard, we've got Ventura Avenue. If you go all the way to the opposite end of the yard, we have our eastern property boundary, which has 2 trees on it. One of the trees is actually on Ventura Land Trust property. The scenic beauty from the top of Mariano is really breathtaking.
How did this little organization, been around a while, not really that big, raise $4 million? Well, we had an anonymous donor very interested in Ventura Land Trust who gave us $1 million and said, you can keep it if you buy Mariano Rancho. If you don't, I'd like it back, please. Perfectly understandable. That $1 million was the start of us being serious contenders to purchase the property. Then we had to figure out how to bring in the other $3 million.
Ventura Land Trust had to come up with a lot of money really quickly to acquire the Mariano Rancho property. And thanks to kind of the courage of our board of trustees at the time of the acquisition, we took out a loan to buy the property, which was rare. It's hard to secure a loan as a small nonprofit without significant revenue streams. A lender, Montecito Bank and Trust, secured the loan for us, and we had to figure out how to pay it back. And our current executive director, Melissa Baffa, approached Assembly Member Steve Bennett.
I didn't realize the camera was on then, but Hi, I'm Steve Bennett. I'm the Assembly member that represents the citizens of Western Ventura County in the California Legislature in Sacramento. The role I played in this whole effort here with the Ventura Land Trust was the political action that was needed early to make sure we protected this property long enough for an organization like the Land Trust to come together, for us to be able to get the resources that we needed. Once I was elected to the legislature, I was able to secure $7 million that's been used to pay off the debt to purchase this property, and also to pay to get the public amenities that are needed, the parking, the trails, etc., so that the public can access this property. Political action can oftentimes save a property like this temporarily, but it is the long-term changes that are really important that have both come from the political action. Look how much more we're redeveloping inside the urban centers in Ventura County, and we're protecting these beautiful places outside of the urban centers. And so political action can lead to permanent change, but the permanent change needs Ventura Land Trust and organizations like that to be able to purchase the property.
I don't think there's been anything easy about acquiring and stewarding Mariano Rancho.
There's a lot of challenges with owning and managing Mariano. This property has been marked by decades of extractive use, both from the adjacent oil field and transportation of that oil over this property and grazing, primarily by cattle. So that's resulted in abandoned infrastructure. That's resulted in proliferation of invasive species.
This is a mess. You know, this pipeline has been here, I think, since the 1940s. There's been iterations of pipeline development across this property. These last 2 big rainfall years, you know, we're seeing a lot of movement. And this year alone, we've been informed on an evolving basis of 4 or 5 compromised zones in the pipe. They'll need to repair these areas. Now, repair doesn't mean like we're driving on a road and we're just gonna, you know, put some duct tape over on this pipe that's right here. In this zone, you can see this is one of the more profoundly complicated areas to manage. Nobody likes this. They don't want to manage this super complicated to access pipeline. They probably wouldn't develop it this way now. We all use this utility product, natural gas, but the impact, this is a nature preserve. How do we manage this relationship and this need while preserving biodiversity and the conservation values that are at the core of our mission and our organization? And it's a really tough interface to manage. And we're kind of just trying to understand and wrap our arms around what we can do to mitigate the impacts.
So we're looking at a pretty cool clump of native ground nesting bees, or turret bees, bindweed turret bees. They're a really amazing native bee that will build these little holes in the ground and then build a turret shape. And they do that in an attempt to protect themselves from a parasitic fly called a bee fly. These bees need an open surface to make these turrets on. With the growing introduction of more and more invasive plants, and they just take over these landscapes, what used to be a kind of a patchy clumps of vegetation has now turned into oftentimes good native vegetation with annual invasive grasses or mustards or countless other invasives. These kind of bare soil patches are much more rare. We have a very interesting complex of use on Mariano at the moment. People, this is right off the Lincoln entrance, and it's probably the most commonly walked portion of the preserve, or trespassed portion of the preserve. And you know, that leads to people walking up and down this fire road that we've cleared. And so in an attempt to try and protect these bees from their turrets getting trampled and them getting trampled, we put these little flags out. I guess the point to make here for me is that VLT is not in the position that we are organization expecting everyone to know everything and be perfect out here. I want us to be a partner in people learning about this environment, learning about where they live, rather than a school teacher with a ruler slapping people on the knuckles. Like, you don't have to tiptoe out here. This is a nature preserve, but you do need to be careful and you do need to be thoughtful. You know, promoting that sense of thoughtfulness is really, I think, the #1 way to start to make positive communal change out here. Because really, if you look at these hillsides, there's a lot to do, but there's also a lot of really amazing native habitat out here that I think people deserve to see and will really enjoy spending time out here and seeing.
The Mariano Rancho project is widely celebrated in the community. People are very excited about legally being able to access the hillsides. The project is also pretty contentious with some of the people that live around the preserve. I understand that the people that live immediately adjacent to the preserve are concerned about public access and people being on the property in close proximity to their homes. First and foremost, that's why Ventura Land Trust is fencing our property boundary. We want to prevent people from trespassing off of the preserve onto our neighbor's property. If there's an issue that comes up from public access on our property, we will work with you on that. We're committed to being a good neighbor. There will never be homes or development built on that property right next door to you. It will remain open space. You're not going to have loud construction. You're not going to have big buildings. You're not going to have any of that. Ventura Land Trust is an engaged landowner. If there's an issue on the property, we're going to deal with it. We're on the property regularly. We're paying attention. We're trying to mitigate fire risk. We're improving public access. You can call Ventura Land Trust and talk to someone about what's going on at Mariano Rancho. That's a major benefit to you living next to the preserve. One of the biggest things that I try to communicate to our neighbors is that Ventura Land Trust has made a commitment to steward this land in perpetuity forever. That's a really big commitment. It's a long time. There's a lot of resources that go into that land stewardship. If we want to sustainably manage this property forever, we have to make these difficult decisions now that are going to provide that long-term viability. Going forward, our goal is to build trails that are sustainable. They manage water well, they're not prone to erosion, they'll hold up over time, And at the same time, they provide a good user experience. They're fun, they're safe, and people can use these trails to connect with nature. So in an effort to build trails that are ecologically responsible and sustainably built, Ventura Land Trust has worked extensively with Sage Trail Alliance at Harmon Canyon. And Sage is led by our friend and colleague, Dylan Osliger. Dylan's a soil scientist. He can use words that nobody knows what they mean except him.
Mariano acts as this really cool palimpsest. I knew it when I said that word.
Literally never heard that word before in my life.
I think a lot of people see trails as just being a ribbon of dirt upon a landscape that kind of gets you where you want to go or where the designer wanted you to go and see.
Is that a sparrow? That guy is a goldfinch.
Ah.
He is protected in North America. A lot of the times we're reverse engineering the trail. So we're starting with what's the geology, what is the soils, how does hydrology work within the landscape, where are main biodiversity corridors, where is there invasive species versus native species? And that shows us where does conservation need to happen. And then create a trail that's still fun, but allows people to see and experience those places while simultaneously leaving them alone.
My real goal here is to just create the amount of trails that are necessary to make a community happy, get people interacting with one another and the environment, and leaving as much as we possibly can as holistic chunks to get it to work into restoration or conservation potential, to show people those things. I think that's what Ventura Land Trust has in mind.
We have an opportunity to impact our community in perpetuity. What's exciting to me about this work is that we are impacting the people who are here today in our community, but we're also impacting people who aren't even born yet.
As a kid, I grew up playing in a local stream and having the freedom to roam. And for our community to have that, that is really exciting for me. For people of all ages, all abilities, to be able to just come out and enjoy nature so close to home, that's awesome.
I hope this update and information is helpful for community members who want to know about the project. So I'd encourage everyone, come by the preserve, stop in at Harmon, you'll probably see me. We're going to be here forever.